Welcome to another edition of It's Good to Have Goals with Bob and Ryan.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another week of It's Good to Have Goals. This week, we are going to have the news.
This is our second of 3 episodes today, like we said in the first video. If you haven't watched it yet, you might want to go check that one out first, considering it'll be in chronological order. But this is our second episode. We're going to do our reviews, then our news, then our previews. We're going to do 3 videos instead of 1. So we'll get into it.
Remember, our show is sponsored by Gigi's Bread Company. Again, we're working on a sourdough. It's coming to you. Trust us.
We're also trying to work on a link to where you can get there.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe
Subscriptions.
so you can,
Nice.
contact us in any way.
All right, so tell us about the 5th game this week,
So
Ryan.
the 5th game, it's still the same segment as always. The other things that we noticed from around the world that we thought were interesting that we didn't talk about in a game-to-game basis. So we'll start with Bayern Munich beating Bayer Leverkusen 4-2 in the DFB Pokal final. Their second trophy of the year. That means they're 2 for 2. If they win the Champions League, that's 3 for 3. That's the treble. That's the hardest thing to do in soccer. So watch out for Bayern on that front there. But it was really an easy win in the end. Robert Lewandowski scores twice for Bayern. And it was, I think, 3-0. And then Leverkusen scored 2 sort of late on, and then Bayern scored 1 even later. Then we'll go to Real Madrid. Sergio Ramos scores his 5th goal in 5 games. Sergio Ramos is a center back. He's a defender.
Wow.
He scored 3 penalties in 5 games, and that's been really the controversy with Real Madrid, that the referees are sort of handing them the league with all the penalties that they've been given. But I think it has more to do with Barcelona struggling and Real Madrid just kind of slowly battling their way out of these games, which is, again, why I say they're built to win this kind of league when they've got to win a game at a time and not 10 games in a row. Not 8 games out of 10. They've got to win 10 in a row, 1 game at a time. They're built to win that way, and they're probably going to end up winning because they're built to win that way. We talked about Barcelona in our review segment. They finally performed at a high level after a 2-2 draw with Atleti, a 2-2 draw with Celta, and then before that some poor performances and wins. They beat Villarreal 4-1. Ansu Fati gets a goal, Messi gets a goal. Villarreal get a goal from Gerard Moreno. We're going to talk about him a little bit later. And then Lazio lose to Milan 3-0.
We're on Lazio watch, no more.
We were on Lazio watch. We still kind of are. They're still kind of in the league. They need a lot more help now than they did before. And even before, they needed some help. But their title hopes are not gone, but sort of hanging by a thread in Italy. We'll keep going with the 5th game, with Juve getting two big wins, a 3-1 win over Genoa and a 4-1 win over Torino in the Turin derby, whatever they call it in Italian. It sounds a lot cooler in Italian than it does in English. But Atalanta beat Napoli to tighten their grip on Champions League places. That's the 4th place spot. That's likely where they'll finish, but the form of Inter being up and down, Atalanta could finish 3rd. And some can argue Atalanta's been the best team in Serie A this year, despite being 4th. They just haven't picked up results in certain moments. Southampton stunned Man City 1-0, and I think you can talk about this one a little bit here, with the goalie with the bad pass.
That's the one that I remember, yeah.
Che Adams scoring from...
Good defense in there, though, from Southampton.
Che Adams scoring from just beyond half field after a bad pass from Ederson and bad play from Alexander Zinchenko, who was a left back playing center mid for some reason in that clip. Norwich are likely relegated with their loss to Arsenal at the middle of the week, and then a poor performance against, I forget who. Bournemouth were absolutely whacked twice this week by Newcastle 4-1 and then Manchester United 5-2. So they're likely going to follow them. They have not been good at all. Who do you think? I would say Aston Villa is going to be the 3rd team to join them. I haven't been impressed with them at all. Could be West Ham, could be Watford. I certainly don't think it's going to be Watford, though, even though they're probably the worst of the 3 teams. I think they offer you something different than the other 2 teams. Villa like to play out of the back, and that's... Villa like to play out of the back. West Ham kind of like to play out of the back. Watford the only team that can really sit down, bunker themselves, and then kind of play on the counter, and they're the only team that's really comfortable with that. So I think they survive, and then Villa go down, in my opinion. But some would say West Ham go down. And then the European races are heating up in England with Manchester United's win, Chelsea's loss to West Ham, Leicester's loss to the midweek. There's now, I think, only 2 points separating all three teams for third, fourth, and fifth.
Wow. Wonderful.
Now, it might not matter in the end if Man City gets their Champions League ban, which I don't think is going to happen anymore, based on, I think, Man City have a genuinely good, not appeal, but response to the convictment. I don't know. I'm speaking randomly here now. I don't know. But again, I think all three have a chance of getting in if Man City loses its appeal. I don't think it's going to happen. So 2 out of those 3 will get in. I think Manchester United and Chelsea will be the 2 in the end that get in. Leicester will go to the Europa League. Wolves still have a chance to play Champions League football. They look like a Europa League team, though. Arsenal, Sheffield United, Tottenham, Burnley even have a shot at Europa League football. A lot of teams still in contention for Europe in England.
Well, fantastic. All right, tell us about our top American players over in Europe this
It's
week.
not necessarily all players this week. We get Indiana Vasilev. That's a great name, isn't it?
Yeah.
He makes a kind of 15-minute period for Aston Villa against Liverpool. Didn't do much, didn't get much of the ball. Won a header. That was about it that I really saw.
Where did he come from in the United
I'm
States?
not really sure, but
Maybe Indiana.
I don't know. Christian Pulisic draws a penalty against Watford in their 3-0 win. He was even good in the loss against West Ham. He's been one of the better players since the restart happened. Weston McKennie wants to move to the Premier League. We keep talking about him every week, sort of as a candidate to move somewhere else, with Schalke being poor all season and him being one of their better players. He is from Texas. He's not from McKinney, Texas. We learned that this week. Josh Sargent started today, Monday, again for Werder Bremen, as they snuck past Heidenheim in the Bundesliga playoff. Heidenheim. And then the MLS's back tournament starts July 8th. That is from the time of recording 2 days from now.
We're losing teams to the coronavirus.
We're losing one team. FC Dallas is not going to participate. They've had 10 players test positive, 1 coach test positive. Not the head coach, though. Lucci will never contract the disease. He is perfect health. Carlos Vela will also not participate. The reigning MLS MVP won't play. That's a big loss for them. And I think that has something to do with FC Dallas's sort of problems in that sense. So that's a big loss for MLS on that front. And then our news segment, which is sort of our transfer segment now, it's starting to become. Leroy Sané signs for Bayern Munich, 55 million euros around.
Where did he come from? He came from Man City.
He wanted to leave for the last year and a half. It was rumored he'd threatened to sit out a whole year and not sign a new contract and just sit out a year so he could go to Bayern on free.
So if they sit out a year, then they're free to go?
Essentially, you don't have to play. You can just kind of fake an injury the whole year if you really want to. So he's gone. Man City just said, we don't want you around our club anymore. You can go. Messi reportedly wants to leave Barcelona.
Why would he want to leave Barcelona?
He's not happy with the board. He's not happy with the transfers. He's not happy with the coach. This rumor pops up every 2 years, though I wouldn't take that much to it. I think it's just a silly little rumor. Fabrizio Romano agrees with me. He's one of the more reputable journalists in England. Jude Bellingham, the 16-year-old, likely off to, he's 17 now, actually. Likely off to Dortmund, not Manchester United. That's nearly complete, I think, for around $30 million. For a 17-year-old, that's big money. And then Thiago Alcantara he wants to leave Bayern. I don't know how likely it is. I wrote down set to leave Bayern because usually when a player wants to go, he gets his wish, a la Leroy
Where would he
Sané.
go to?
Liverpool is the big destination, which I think would be a very good move for him. I think it would be a very good move for Liverpool. But you have to be kind of sad for Bayern because he's been a key player for them this year when he's played. But he just, for some reason, has decided to upend, and his desire to leave has gone above his desire to stay. So that's a likely move. Arsenal, we talked about them signing players to re-signing players. 2 young players, Gabriel Martinelli and Bukayo Saka, who scored a goal this weekend. They signed new deals. How much is Jadon Sancho going to go for to Manchester United? It seems really likely that that's his destination in the end.
How much do you think he'll go for?
Well, it's unclear. Dortmund value him at $100 million. Manchester United don't want to spend more than $50. That's a big gap, but that's usually how all negotiations start, I think, with 2 big gaps that they kind of even out. It's reported he's already agreed a wage when he moves to Manchester United of £140,000 a week.
Do they do money in players as well to get up to a trade? Or?
They can. You'll probably see a lot of that this summer with the financial problems due to coronavirus. I don't think you'll see that in Sancho's case. United don't have many players that Dortmund would want. I think it's going to end up being around 90 million. Dortmund are known as a club that don't really budge much, and Manchester United are known as a club with a lot of money that can probably pay the 100 million. They just don't want to. So I think it's going to end up being 85 to 90 million straight up, and then maybe add-ons to get it to 100 million. Struggling Bolton, who were in League One, they were in the Championship.
What's the name of the team?
Bolton Wanderers. Yeah, a lot of Wanderers. They were in the Championship maybe a year ago. Even they were in League One this year. They almost entered administration. They entered administration this year, which is sort of. We'll talk about that again there at the bottom. But that's kind of like when you can't financially, you're in a lot of debt. You can't financially pay wages and stuff like that. They got relegated from League One this year. They're in the fourth tier next year, League Two. They've signed Ian Evatt, who was the manager of a fifth tier side, Barrow, who swept the fifth tier with fantastic soccer. One of the up and coming English managers. So it'll be interesting to see if Ian Evatt's career is hindered by Bolton, or Bolton's chances are improved due to Ian Evatt's arrival. It'll be interesting to see which way that goes. And then Wigan Athletic.
Keep an eye on it.
Wigan Athletic enter administration themselves. Probably due mostly to coronavirus.
So then, how do you get out of administration?
So administration is sort of when I don't know if it's the government or the FA come in and kind of take over for you, and like they basically hold the club until you can get a new owner in that can clear the debt. But administration is really bad for a club because they don't put any money into the club.
Will they sell a player then?
They'll keep it afloat. It's rumored that Wigan Athletic, one of the better academies in England, are about to get 10 or 12 of their best academy talents robbed by Premier League teams.
Well,
because
they
need
get
money.
out of administration successfully.
As do I. They're a former Premier League team that have a lot of potential in there. That's our news segment. We got one more to go.
All right, fantastic. See y'all next week.